It started with, scratching symbols onto stone tablets. It evolved into ink on parchment. And then it became this incredibly nuanced, complex way we navigate our entire lives. It is, and this is no exaggeration, the bedrock of civilization.
And if you really look at the history of our species, it's the primary skill. It's what
Yeah.
separates us from, well, the rest of the animal kingdom. It's
And-
our superpower.
Exactly. But here's the twist, and honestly, it's a bit of a terrifying one. Imagine that in the blink of an eye, historically speaking, we just decided to drop that toolkit. We started trading it in for something faster, shinier, but
But emptier.
arguably, yeah, emptier.
It sounds like the premise of a dystopian novel, doesn't it?
Right.
The moment humanity went silent.
It does, but we aren't talking about fiction today. We are talking about the art of communication. We're diving into a really provocative piece from Spooky Site by Sarah Avi. It was just published February 2026. And the headline is, it's a punch to the gut. Generation Z is rapidly losing a human skill that's been around for 5,500 years.
And it's not just a clickbait headline. The data underneath it is genuinely worrying.
It is. The article cites a study claiming that nearly 40% of young people today report, significant difficulty in just expressing themselves clearly.
40%.
That is almost half a generation saying, I don't know how to tell you what I'm thinking. And when I read that, I had to stop. I mean, look around. We're in the communication age, right? We have 1,000 ways to message each other. We are more connected than any humans in history. So how is it mathematically possible that this fundamental skill is deteriorating so fast?
That is the core paradox of our time. And it's exactly what we need to explore in this deep dive. See, connectivity and communication, they're not the same thing. It's not just about kids being on their phones or some grumpy complaint about texting. This is a fundamental structural shift in how we connect. If we lose the ability to read people, to listen, to empathize, we aren't just having bad conversations. We're risking the cohesion of our families, our workplaces, and, frankly, society at large.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission today is to figure out why this decline is happening, identify the specific muscles that are weakening, and spoiler alert, it's the big ones like empathy and listening,
Big ones.
and then look at the practical ways the source suggests we can bridge this gap. Because as the article points out, this isn't a lost cause, but it is a crisis.
Absolutely. And to understand the crisis, we have to look at the group the source is focusing on, Generation Z. We're defining this group as those born roughly between, the mid-1990s and the early 2010s.
Right. The digital natives. The first cohort to go through their whole adolescence with a supercomputer in their pocket. But before we get into what they're doing, let's look at what we're comparing them to. The article talks about the art of communication in the past. It paints this picture of a time when communication had weight.
Weight is the perfect word for it. Historically, communication was deliberate. It had friction.
Friction.
Yeah, think about the physical act of writing a letter. I mean, really visualize it. You sit down at a desk, you have paper, a pen, you have one shot to get it right, or you have to crumple it up and start over. You have to organize your thoughts before the ink hits the page.
And then there's the waiting.
The waiting is crucial. You mail it, and it might be a week, maybe two before it even arrives.
Right.
That time lag meant the message had to matter. You weren't going to write a 3-page letter just to say lol or send a thumbs up.
Yeah.
The medium demanded substance.
So the friction, the difficulty, it actually created quality.
Precisely. Scarcity created value. Even phone calls followed this logic. You didn't call someone constantly. You called sparingly, so when you did, it was meaningful. You had to have a conversation. You had to navigate the awkward pauses. You had to listen to the tone of their voice to know if they were happy or sad, because you couldn't see them.
And now, flip the switch to 2026, the digital-first world.
No friction. Zero. You can fire off a thought the second it enters your brain. Emojis, GIFs, shorthand. Sarah Avi's analysis in the article points out that while this is incredible for logistics, I'm running 5 minutes late.
Sure.
It is terrible for nuance.
I have to play devil's advocate for a second here, though, because I love a good GIF. Sometimes a well-placed reaction image says more than I could in a paragraph. Is it really that bad? Are we just being, nostalgic?
It's not that it's bad in isolation. It's about what it replaces. If a GIF replaces a nuanced conversation about feelings, that's where the trouble starts. The source argues that when you rely on visual shorthand, you are essentially outsourcing your emotions.
Outsourcing emotions.
Think about it. A GIF is a prepackaged emotion. You are selecting from a menu of someone else's reactions. You aren't doing the cognitive work of describing your internal state. You're trading depth for speed. And the casualty of that trait is the first big missing ingredient the article highlights.
Empathy.
Empathy. The source calls it the heartbeat of meaningful communication, and they define it pretty simply: the ability to feel what another person is feeling.
Simple to define, hard to practice, especially behind a screen. The source presents a theory here that because Gen Z has grown up in this screen-centric world, they've had fewer opportunities to develop this skill in person. And there's actual biology at play here, mirror neurons.
Okay, hold on. Mirror neurons. Break that down for us.
It's this fascinating mechanism in the brain. If I'm sitting across from you and I see your eyes well up, or your voice cracks, or you slump your shoulders, my brain involuntarily mimics that state. My mirror neurons fire. I literally feel a version of your sadness. That's the biological basis of empathy.
But if you text me, I'm sad, my mirror neurons are just staring at pixels.
Exactly. You see pixels, you might project your own mood onto it, but you don't feel their mood physiologically. The article actually makes a specific comparison here to women over 40.
Yes, I caught that. It seemed a bit specific. Why does the source single out that demographic?
It's about the training data, if we want to use a tech term. That demographic spent decades navigating complex social environments, offices, families, relationships, mostly face-to-face. They learned to read the room because they had to. They didn't have the option to hide behind an avatar. The argument isn't that Gen Z can't be empathetic, but that the environment they're in doesn't nurture it in the same way.
So if the environment is the problem, how do we fix it? I mean, we can't just delete the internet.
No, and the source isn't suggesting we go back to the Stone Age. It's about active modeling. And this is the part that might make some listeners squirm a bit. It requires vulnerability from adults.
So how do we model empathy?
The source suggests that adults, parents, mentors, colleagues need to talk about their own emotional complexity. For instance, talking about a mistake you made at work.
Oh, that's tough. We usually want to hide our mistakes.
We do, but hiding them teaches nothing. If you come home and say, I really messed up a presentation today, and I feel embarrassed, and I'm worried my boss thinks I'm incompetent, you are doing something powerful. You're giving young people a roadmap. You're showing them this is what complex emotion looks like, and this is how we talk about it.
You're giving them the vocabulary they might be missing.
Exactly. And it also mentions encouraging Gen Z to express their own feelings, even in small ways, instead of just accepting, I'm fine, maybe digging a little deeper.
Which leads us directly to the second missing ingredient. If empathy is about feeling, this next one is about processing. We're talking about active listening.
This is a big one. And we need to make a distinction here. There's a huge difference between just hearing words and active listening.
I feel like a lot of us are guilty of just waiting for our turn to speak. I know I am sometimes. I'm just crafting my comeback while you're still talking.
That is the default mode for many of us. And that is the opposite of active listening. Active listening, as the source describes it, involves understanding the message behind the words. It's noticing the tone. It's seeing the facial expression. It's picking up on the unspoken emotions.
And again, this links back to the screen issue. If I'm reading a text, there is no tone, there's no facial expression. I'm just projecting my own mood onto the words. If I'm stressed, I read your text as aggressive.
That is a critical point. In a text, you supply the tone. In active listening, you observe the tone. And when that skill declines, interactions become superficial. We miss the subtext. The source suggests that women over 40 have often refined this skill through years of interacting with colleagues and family, learning the value of patience.
So how do we train this skill in a generation that's used to 15-second videos and instant replies?
We have to slow down. The extra advice in the article suggests specific activities. One is family storytelling sessions.
That sounds kind of old school. Gather around the fire, kids.
It is 5,500 years old school. But think about the cognitive load of listening to a story, a real story, with a beginning, middle, and end. The listeners have to focus. They have to follow the thread. They can't be scrolling TikTok while listening to a 5-minute story about your first car. It forces a specific type of sustained attention.
So it's basically a gym workout for your attention span.
It is. Another suggestion is weekly check-ins or casual discussions about current events. But the goal isn't to debate.
Right, because usually we debate to win.
Exactly. The goal here is to teach them to focus on listening rather than responding. It's saying, tell me what you think, and I will listen to understand you. Then I will tell you what I think, and you listen. It's a practice of patience.
I love that. It's treating conversation like a game of catch, not a tennis match. In tennis, I'm trying to smash the ball past you. In catch, I'm trying to throw it so you can actually catch it.
That's a brilliant analogy. We need more catch, less tennis. And this brings us to the broader issue of technology. The source is very careful to clarify something. Digital communication is not inherently harmful.
Right. We aren't Luddites here. We're not saying smash the smartphones.
No. The problem isn't the tool, it's how it's used. The article proposes a sort of hierarchy of communication. Not all digital interactions are created equal.
Give me an example. How do we rank them?
Well, at the bottom you have text. Low bandwidth, low nuance. Efficient for buy milk, terrible for I'm sorry.
Okay.
Above that, you have voice notes or phone calls. Much better. But at the top, if you can't be there in person, is the video call.
Because of the visuals.
Yes, a video call offers a much richer experience. You get the tone, you get the body language, it forces a higher level of engagement. You can't multitask as easily on a video call. You have to be present.
So if you can't be there in person, FaceTime is significantly better than WhatsApp.
According to this philosophy, yes. But the source also emphasizes the need for a balancing act between online and offline.
And this is where the rubber meets the road. The article lists some specific tactics. One of them is the classic family dinners without phones.
It's a classic for a reason. It creates a forced period of presence. Another one is weekend outings where full attention is required. But my favorite suggestion from the source, and this goes back to our intro, is writing handwritten letters.
Going full retro. But honestly, why? If I can text you in 3 seconds, why spend 30 minutes writing a letter?
Because of the value proposition. It's not just nostalgia. If I write you a letter, I am telling you, you are worth the paper, the ink, the stamp, and the 30 minutes of my life it took to do this.
It's tangible proof of care.
Exactly. It teaches a young person that communication takes effort. It teaches them to structure their thoughts. It reminds them that someone is worth the time. It nourishes the relationship in a way a text never can.
It's the difference between fast food and a home-cooked meal. Both feed you, but one nourishes you differently.
And that nourishment is what builds the relationship. It reminds young people of the value of presence.
So we have the skills we need to build empathy and listening. We have the tactics balancing tech and going analog sometimes. Now let's talk about the environment. The source talks about creating safe spaces and judgment-free zones.
This is crucial. You cannot expect a teenager, or anyone really, to practice vulnerable communication if they think they're going to be criticized the moment they open their mouth.
Tell me how you feel, so I can explain why you're wrong.
That shuts it down instantly. The goal is to reinforce honesty. If a young person expresses a feeling, even if it's messy or wrong in your eyes, the first step is to listen without judgment.
That's hard for parents sometimes. You want to fix it immediately.
You do, but the fix is often just the listening. And this leads to the role of mentorship. The article specifically highlights the opportunity for women over 40 and older generations to step into this role.
And mentorship here doesn't mean standing at a podium and lecturing.
Far from it. And the source warns against the old man yelling at cloud approach. You cannot start the conversation by criticizing their phones.
Right. You can't say, put down that stupid phone and then expect them to open up about their deepest fears.
Exactly. You have to guide them gently. You acknowledge their world. I know it's easier to text, but you invite them into yours. But I'd really love to see your face and hear your voice because I miss it. It's an invitation, not a command.
That approach feels so much more productive. It's collaborative. Let's connect rather than you are connecting wrong.
Right. It's about sharing life lessons and demonstrating that the messy, slow, face-to-face stuff is actually where the magic happens.
But I want to zoom out for a minute. We've been talking about living rooms and dinner tables, but the source takes this to a much bigger stage.
It does. It scales the problem up to the societal level. The expert view here is that communication is the cornerstone of society.
So what happens if we let this cornerstone crumble?
The consequences are severe. If a generation loses the ability to communicate with nuance and empathy, it affects social cohesion. How do you solve community problems if you can't understand a differing viewpoint? It affects teamwork in the workplace. And ultimately, the source argues, it affects democracy itself.
Democracy depends on debate, persuasion, and understanding. If we lose that.
If we lose that, we lose the ability to self-govern effectively. We become isolated tribes shouting digital shorthand at each other. We view anyone who disagrees with us not as a person with a different opinion, but as a troll to be blocked.
That is a terrifying thought.
It is, and that's why the article brings up the 5,500 years concept again. From ancient hieroglyphs to today, communication has shaped civilizations. We are the current custodians of this skill. The source calls it a living, breathing skill. It's not a static thing we own. It's something we have to keep alive.
And the responsibility falls on us to ensure the next generation can carry that torch.
Precisely. We are at a pivot point.
So let's recap what we've uncovered in this deep dive. We started with a shocking stat: 40% of Gen Z struggling to express themselves. We identified the culprits: a shift from weighty, slow, high-friction communication to fast, diluted digital shorthand.
We identified the missing ingredients: empathy, feeling what others feel through those mirror neurons, and active listening, hearing the intent behind the words.
And we looked at the solutions. It's not about banning technology. It's about a balanced diet: video calls over text, face-to-face dinners, handwritten letters to prove effort.
And underneath all of that, it's about mentorship. Older generations modeling patience and vulnerability to create safe spaces where these skills can regrow.
It really puts a new perspective on just chatting with your family. It's not just small talk. It's civilization maintenance.
It really is. Every conversation is a little brick in the wall of society.
Before we wrap up, there is one final thought from the source that I found particularly provocative. It's something for you, the listener, to chew on. The article mentions that humans gave up fur for an evolutionary advantage. Biology decided we didn't need it anymore. We found clothes, fire, shelter. It was an upgrade.
Right. But the question Sarah Avi poses is this: is this an upgrade? If we give up the nuance of face-to-face connection for the speed of an emoji, are we evolving? Or, for the first time in history, are we actually devolving away from what makes us most human?
Are we trading our humanity for convenience? That is a heavy question to leave you with, but I think it's the right one.
It's the question that should guide how we pick up our phones or put them down tomorrow.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the art of communication.
It's been a pleasure. Keep listening, everyone.
And keep talking, real talking. We'll see you next time.